This is the Barbell Therapy and Performance Podcast, where traditional healthcare is redefined to help listeners achieve peak performance, accelerate recovery, and elevate overall health. Hosted by Dr. Brett Scott, a doctor of physical therapy and national strength coach, this podcast explores the worlds of fitness, alternative medicine, and holistic health. Each episode uncovers innovative strategies and practical solutions for those seeking to enhance their quality of life when conventional methods fall short. It is our firm belief that every living thing has potential, and it is our mission to help you find that potential.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brett Scott. So for those of you listening, quick ask of all of you is, we know that 84% of you that are listening won't actually hit the like, rate, subscribe button, review, anything like that. So if you could, please do us a favor and do that, because it helps us grow this podcast to get more views, more likes, and then the bigger the podcast gets, the more viewership we get, the bigger guests we can get on to continue to grow and share more information with you guys. So please go ahead and do that. So no further than that, today we have, I would consider you a decent friend of mine now, Danny Camargo.
Thank you.
Who is a Olympic weightlifting coach, and he's got quite the track record, and he's one of the best known coaches in the U.S. for what he's done with the sport in this country especially. So he's been doing this for 30 years now, since he was the age of 12. He's personally competed 9 times in international competitions himself. He's set 3 junior American records. He's produced several state, collegiate, national champions. He is a U.S. senior international level coach. He was the head coach of the 2015 World Championship team. He owns Ollie Concepts in Orlando, Florida. And you were a resident training athlete at the Olympic Training Center as well for some time, weren't you?
That's it, 4 years. I survived the camp that was brutal in the 90s.
Yeah, and I've met Danny a few times now, and he's one of the most helpful guys that just seems like he wants to continue to educate people, including coaches. I had the opportunity to share a platform with him at one of the national meets when I was training with Brooke there, and you gave me some helpful tips and things. If I was in a sticky situation, and
I didn't even know you.
Yeah, and then you were I was a stranger to you, and then going to Pan American Championships with you, we just had a lot of good conversations and everything about the barbell and coaching. So
That's right.
It's great to have you on here today, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's about time.
Yeah. So 30 years in this sport. Yeah. What still makes you so enthusiastic about it to this day, do you think? Because I can even see it. There's lots of coaches that have been doing this for a while. Not a lot of people have the enthusiasm for it that you do.
Yeah.
And put the emotional passion into it like you do.
Yeah. Thank you. If I had to say what keeps my juices still flowing, right? I mean, that's what you're asking me. My gears are still turning.
Yeah.
I think it's being open-minded to change, because if weightlifting hadn't grown, maybe I said this to you, like weightlifting, the Olympic weightlifting, we're going through an evolution right now. The growth has been wild. If it wasn't really for that, I think that I would still be doing the same thing, teaching the same philosophies, which mine has changed throughout the years. Repeating the same reps and sets, giving everyone the same things, and maybe I would have been an old-time burnout, disgruntled by now, like I don't know, some of those that I've met. But the sport's changing. I'm going with it, so I think I'm pretty open-minded. I'm old enough in the sport to call myself old school and a traditionalist, but at the same time young enough that I don't mind opening it up and doing something different, even if it seems unorthodox. And I think because of that, Brett, it feels new a lot to me. So that's what keeps me going.
I like that. Yeah, being open-minded is huge in my field as as a physical therapist, as a coach. Things are changing, science is changing. We're constantly learning new things. I think that's a really important thing that gets overlooked, and a lot of people are just stuck in their ways of, well, I've done it this way for 30 years, and this is how it has to be.
No.
Yeah, that makes things get real boring over a period of time for someone like you and me probably.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just still feels fresh to me, man. I don't know. Every few months, every few years, man. Sometimes every day, there's something different than I'm used to seeing, and I don't know. It just keeps me inspired. Plus, this is all I do, and this is my life. I don't have a choice, but to keep in love with it, man. Not get angry with it.
Yeah. And so when it comes to coaching the sport of weightlifting, what are the main philosophies you kind of believe in when it comes to that? And that's a really big open-ended question, but
Yeah.
I was looking at your website and stuff, and you had a whole thing about the coaching philosophies of weightlifting. So what are those to you?
Yeah. Really two main things. I think my biggest approach to coaching weightlifting, honestly, probably coaching any individual sport, perhaps, is one, I really think teaching the athlete from even beginner, the novice, through their career is teaching independence. And by that, I don't mean like emancipation, right? I mean self-awareness. When a beginner starts to lift and learn, they don't know what they don't know, and so they don't know what they are feeling. But early on, I try to make them recognize that, because the hope is to develop them to higher levels. And when they get advanced, you need them to be self-aware enough to help you, in turn, help them further. I hope that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
I can only see so much. I'm the observer, and as an athlete, maybe when they're beginners, it's easy. All their mistakes are so obvious, but when when the practitioner becomes more advanced in their movement or even their skill set with Olympic lifting, you really need them to be able to articulate to you, they perform a lift. I will say, that was good. They're going to reply, no, it wasn't. All right. Not argumentative, but they feel something I can't see. And that's really, really important for them to be able to tell me what. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, it looked good to me. The bar moved fast. You seemed balanced. You look stable today. What did you feel? And then you'll be super surprised when the athlete's able to tell you, well, at this part of the lift, I felt as this was happening or whatever. And then it all makes sense. You kind of, which leads into the second part of my philosophy, is collaborate with them through the course of their career. So I like teaching independence, and then always think collaboration. It's not my way or the highway, because ultimately it's their career. So that's my really two main points, man. Be self-aware and always work together, because I'm telling you, my way is great. I'm proud of my way, but everybody is different. And when we get to really important levels, I need to facilitate their career with their consultation, because it's not my show, it's their show.
Mm-hmm. So on the independent side of that and facilitating that, so is more of your coaching with your higher level lifters about almost improving the communication they have with you on, and trying to just get an understanding of what they're feeling versus this needs to be better or this needs to change?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying the ability to articulate what they feel or predict how they're going to feel based on the training that I am writing for them, right? Like, I'm not trying to go off too far on a tangent. I think this is relative. Programming, writing workouts, reps, sets, exercise selection, peaking, volumizing, deloading, like all of that. Yeah, it's important, but it is not the end all be all to an athlete's success. It's just one part of everything else, because I could write the air quotes perfect program for an athlete, and I can guess at what I would want them to be in week 3 or week 4 or week 5 of whatever cycle I've written. But none of us will know, not even the athlete will know, how they're actually going to feel when they get to those important days, right? Are they tired? Did they sleep? Did they not sleep? Are they feeling good? Are they feeling bad? Up and down. And I mean, stress is accumulative. We have to consider what they're doing outside of the gym. And so the best programs in the world, I think, are the ones that are flexible, adjustable, and almost, I hate to say freestyle, because it almost seems unplanned, because that's not what I'm saying. Have a plan. But I do need the athlete to be able to communicate proper feedback. Oh, and be realistic. And so I think when I tell you or your listeners, I like to teach independence early on, I should probably start saying the word self-aware, because that's really more accurate. I think someone who knows themselves well over the course of their career can say, Coach, all right, this is how I feel. What you wrote for me later on, it's not there today, right? An athlete to turn around to you when they're struggling in training and say, it's not there today, Coach. I'm going to shut it down. Respectfully, right? I'm not saying they're running the show, but man, that's one of the best feelings, I think, when I have someone who's been experienced to tell me in the middle of a session, Coach, today ain't the day. And their demeanors, they are okay with it. They're just communicating to you. That's such a realistic thing. When an athlete tells me that, I say, let's shut it down. I won't say, no, you need to push because my program says so. Screw that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, listen, even if team sports are the same way, team sports, I think the healthiest growth for an athlete in a team sport is a coach who can give them the ability to, find their own way and style to do what the team needs to win, but the freedom to do it, I hate to say their own way, but the way that fits them the best is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like, it's funny when people usually get started in this sport, especially if they're coming from like CrossFit or bodybuilding or something like it, their workhorse, they want to do more and more and more and more.
No.
And they fight you for more, right? They're volume junkies. And then it's always cool to see when they get to that level where, they do a set and maybe it wasn't their best. And they're like, I think I'm just done with this and I'm going to move on with it. It's like, you figured it out, man. You got it.
Yeah, you figured it out. Well, listen, to all the volume junkies out there, I hate to say it. Hopefully you listen to your coach and you go with it and you trust him. If he or she says take a day off, you take a day off. But for the hard-headed ones out there, sometimes it's best to just let them die first. I hate to say it, man. Listen, I know that
gotta
sounds
learn the hard way.
Right. And listen, I don't mean that punishment, right? I'm not vindictive, Coach. It's part of my collaboration. If an athlete refuses, because they really believe pushing hard is the way to go all the time, 12 months out of the year, all right, those are the individuals I actually back up. This is where I allow, they'll find the self-awareness that I'm talking about. Let them die first, man. Let them die, because those people will find their red line and will figure out, well, unfortunately, in those few people, the only way to know that it's too much is to go through that it's too much. Otherwise, how do you really know, right? I'll end here in this thought. I've asked an athlete once before, and now I ask all athletes that I've come across this same scenario. They're just volume junkies, like you said, to use your term, and they're in a training session pushing. I will ask them, hey, are you pushing right now today because you could turn it around and end on a good note? Or are you pushing hard so that you feel less guilty for shutting it down? And that usually wakes them up. And if their answer is, well, so that I don't feel guilty, because it's written, right, Brett? Like, you have those people that, if it's on paper, they must do that. Feeling less guilty is not a reason to push to the workout. You push because you truly believe in your heart you could turn it around that day.
Yeah, I actually started with most of my athletes. Some I have to be more strict with others on, what I give them. But, I've seen a lot of old school weightlifting where it was like, today is 5 sets of 3 at 75%, or 5 sets of 2 at 80%, or 85%, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just give my athletes a range now. And I
love
go to
it.
like the top end of the range of, based on our volume and, we could say Prelipin's chart or whatever, but it's like, this is the max of what I want you to hit for this dose today, but I'm going to give you 10% under that in case you're having a bad day.
Yes.
Like, the goal is to get here, but it's perfectly acceptable. Like, you're still going to get an effective stimulus to create an illicit adaptation, even if you do work at a sub-maximal level to what you might be able to do when you're feeling really good.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. I believe in ranges, not absolutes, which maybe we'll get there as conversation, but the topic of perfection and
Oh,
perfectionists working with
so
it's hard.
I have that on here. So let's
Let's
go
do it.
there. Let's
Yeah.
go there right now. So that is one of the biggest things I've seen in this sport, and I don't know where it comes from, what the culture of weightlifting, why it's come around, but I have had a lot of struggles with athletes, and I don't know if it was me being a younger coach and having developed over time, and my methodology has changed based on what I've seen and been able to reflect on. But some of the later on lifters I've had that have gotten to a pretty high level, I gave them a lot of feedback in the beginning because we needed to change their technique and things. But
Yeah.
they, once they start really being able to consistently hit, the technique and the form right at 60, 70, 80%, and then, they're sending you videos or asking you to review the video. And it's like, they like don't want you to just say that it was good.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
not enough for them.
it's not enough. And it's like, no, like that was better than you were doing it a month ago. Just keep doing whatever you're thinking of right now. Just keep doing that and you're going to get better. It's like, well, no, there's got to be something I can do better. It's like, well, maybe there is in the future, but like right now for where you're at, this is really good. And just keep doing that. And I see it a lot too with, sorry, CrossFitters.
I love you, CrossFitters. I'm a CrossFitter too. No, I'm a CrossFitter too. I used to own an affiliate.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to do when I was trying to do my farmer carries in the gym there. You were doing the bike and then getting in my way doing your burpees in that little gym we were in.
Yeah.
So yeah, Danny does CrossFit still.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know if it's this, but I feel like CrossFit has aspects of weightlifting, but it's not. They don't have a true full understanding of weightlifting as a sport, and they realize that it's very technical. But then all these CrossFitters come to me as patients, as athletes, whatever, and it's like, oh, it needs to be more technical. It's like, this is wrong and this is wrong and I'm doing everything wrong. And it's like, can you just stop and tell me something you're actually doing right?
Yeah, waiting for you to say that. Yeah.
And so it's, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm gonna tell you where it come from. I lived in the dark ages of weightlifting.
Okay.
I lived through that, and this is probably why the very first question. I think I was really happy we started that way. It's changing, it's evolving, it's getting larger and larger and larger. And I don't have to go into that point. Anyone listening to this knows that weightlifting is far more popular than it used to be, which is good because it's about time. I thought that I would live the rest of my life coaching it, grinding as a hobby, not a profession. And die and be fine with that. Yeah. And be completely happy because I love weightlifting. Okay. But now it's a career, and that's a whole nother topic because there's no book on that, right? There's no way to do it. There's no education. Like we are all figuring that out right now. We're writing the book right now.
Yeah.
And it's not always, and it still doesn't pay millions, to tell you that. But anyways, it's my profession. Here's where I think that that perfectionism stuff comes from. I think the movements themselves, the snatch, the clean and jerk, the variations, the positionals, the positional awareness that we develop, I think it draws everyone's slight perfectionist in them out. I think it draws it out a little bit. I have never been a perfectionist. I am such an ish kind of guy. You should see me doing house repairs, buddy. I'm fixing something in the house and it looks good. And I'm like, that's good. I move on. Right. And believe it or not, in my athletic career, I was more of an instinctual lifter than an analytical one. And that was me. That was my personality. I'm not saying anyone out there needs to change who you are. You be you. But I will say, with always performing, and I was an athlete my whole life. I met weightlifting, and that was it. I fell super in love and have done nothing else but trying to learn the snatch, trying to learn the clean and jerk. It did draw out the little bit of perfectionism that I have in myself, very small, because I want to get it right. All right, but now, can you get it right when it's heavy? And I think that's where people get really caught up in. The other place I think it comes from is this. Technology, right? In the world today, all of us are learning. We're getting trained to expect everything quickly, right? Whether I'm ordering Amazon and I get a package the next day, dude, or Uber Eats, and it lands on my front doorstep within 25 minutes or less. And now, unfortunately, younger generations, with whether it's social media, YouTube, or just accessed content, are not looking forward to being better and being elite, just wondering why they aren't already. And so I think that's the second place it comes from, right? So it's kind of a weird cocktail because back in my day, man, I sound old. Everyone who started weightlifting, day one, automatically, the culture of the sport of weightlifting was it takes a while to get good. Everybody felt that way, man. The coaches, Brett, would feel that way too. And so I'm now training athletes and mentoring coaches. I'm super proud of that. This is not ego. I'm proud to say that I help other coaches. I mean, you opened with that I'm helpful.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you, man. Part of the way I was raised in the sport, my coaches were very similar. The coaches who developed me as an athlete, I would watch them help other coaches, and it was a community. And so here I am. I help. I don't even charge for it. I should start doing that though. But my point to that is, even coaches knew back in the day, I'm learning to be a coach. It's going to take me a while to be a good coach too. Where now I'm training athletes, newer, younger athletes, and they want it tomorrow. Coaches I'm mentoring will call me up for advice. And sometimes, not every case, by the way, not every case, just I'm seeing the signs of it, will call me up, and the forms of their questions is where I'm like, dude, you're going off the wrong path because they are stressed. Why aren't they elite coaches now already? So I don't remember when the shift happened, but you are right. I think everyone wants the instant, and it's that's not going to work in lifting.
And yeah, especially too, it's now there's so much you can learn on anyone's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube page about all there is to know about weightlifting.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot about it in a lot of different ways very quickly. But learning how to do it is a whole different thing. Learning what to do is one thing.
Yep.
Being able to execute that fast, with strength, with precision.
Yep.
And like Glenn Penley had the saying of, I can tell you everything there is to know about weightlifting in 10 minutes. It's going to take you 10 years to understand it.
I love that. R.I.P.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to him. That's a good one. It's true.
And yeah, there's just so much out there that people are like, oh, well, I need to do it this way, and I need to do that, and I need to do this. And there's so much, it seems like there's so much focus now on everything you can do better. And like, I had this conversation actually today with my clinical staff about, there's very much a parallel I see between like with physical therapy patients that are anxious and or depressed. It is, especially if they've been dealing with chronic pain, and more people that have anxiety and or depression have higher rates of chronic pain because they're always going down a negative path.
That's right.
It can be, I hate to say it, but it's like dealing with Eeyore. It's like, it's really sunny today. It's like, well, it's going to rain tomorrow. And it's like, great. And it's like, sometimes you could work with someone who could make these amazing changes, and the first thing they'll get up off the table and they'll be like, I still feel it. It's like, yeah, but is it less? Is it different? Did you move further? And I see the same with weightlifters of some people just, it's this, well, I'm not doing this good enough, not doing this good enough. And it's such this cycle of negative self-talk that people go down. And if to the point where like you just truly don't believe in yourself to be capable anymore, like you're not going to have a good performance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think people who are either naturally perfectionists or slowly find themselves becoming perfectionists because of the nature of the sport and everything that I believe in is the cause of it. They're limiting themselves by it. I think they think by being perfect practice makes perfect performance. That, by the way, is BS. I've seen plenty of people train poorly. I've seen plenty of athletes try. They're making effort, but nothing's going their way. And on stage, they kill it and they perform great. You don't need perfect training to have a perfect performance. Training's important, right? We have to do it. But the minute you're on stage, everyone starts at zero. And so, I think this goes back to the conversation of ranges. I don't believe in absolutes. One, that's my personality anyway. But two, you're thinking about being too specific. I think perfectionism is too narrow. Although I can respect and honor someone's effort to be perfect, you gotta be flexible and mentally agile to be okay with less than perfect. And by the way, for the weightlifters listening to this, less than perfect will still be 2 white lights, and that's all you need to move on to the next.
And and sometimes too, like these days, there doesn't have to be a perfect answer to why you missed a lift. Like sometimes it's like, someone can have a great training day. They're super consistent. And then, they miss a lift. They look over to you and they're like, what did I do wrong? It's like, it was just a bad lift.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't worry about what you did wrong. Let's just move on and try again.
Yeah.
Like maybe your hips were low. Maybe your feet weren't balanced that rep, but like you've been super consistent. So just like, let's be a goldfish, forget about it, and move to the next one.
That's right.
And they don't always want to accept that. It's like, well, no, there has to be something I can focus on. It's like, you focusing on it isn't going to help.
Right. Yeah. I think so. To some extent, I think the best athletes have short-term memory.
Yeah. So that's kind of something next there too of what are some of the mental and emotional attributes you see that athletes that are continually making progress or good progress. And this doesn't mean, this is another conversation we can have after this, but doesn't mean they have to be the greatest.
That's right.
Because I think to a certain extent, especially in this sport, genetics play a role in your strength.
Yep.
I don't think there's much arguing about that. Like, not everyone was born to be the greatest.
That's right.
That doesn't mean to say you can't come in at any level and make progress continuously. Right. So what are those mental, emotional attributes to you?
I got 2, man. Right off the jump, as soon as you asked me that. 1, bravery, little courage.
Okay.
It is scary to get under a heavy snatch. It takes bravery to pick up a weight you're not even sure about and still commit to it, fail or succeed, right? Because your question says it's not a matter of being excellent or not. It's just the people who are ongoingly getting better and better. People with success in sport doesn't always mean the medal. But I think top of the list is not hesitating, not being shy. I mean, it's heavy load. And at some point, I mean, you gotta jump off the cliff and go for it, whatever it might mean to you. The second attribute that I think mentally leads to a good weightlifter's success is conflict resolution or taking a failure. They're about the same thing. Right? I think I'm kind of saying the same thing because you're not going to make every rep. You kind of alluded to it in your question. You're not going to make every rep. You're not going to win every medal. You're not going to make every attempt on stage. You're going to miss one, but can you adjust? Right? You go to a tournament and it's colder than your hot gym that you're used to having. Right? Oh well, can you adjust? You're at a tournament or in training and for some reason the barbell is swinging out and away from you. You're forward. I don't know. You're forward every rep and normally you're not. Can you adjust? Can you pivot on that? You're at a tournament and it's getting delayed longer and longer. I mean, all of the things that you cannot control. So I think the best, athletes, they're brave as hell. They'll put themselves in harm's way because athletes at some point, you have to give yourself permission to go. Nothing probably is more true for your profession in rehabilitation, coming back from an injury. Someone is released, right? They did all the rehabilitation great, The pain is down. It's time to start training. I'm sure you can agree at some point. I know I used to be the athlete. Mentally getting over the injury is our big hurdle.
Well,
At some point, you got to risk it.
In ACL rehab now, not for weightlifting so much because we don't see that really as a weightlifting injury, but for field sports, the biggest predictor of re-injury with ACL tears is psychological readiness.
Get out. No way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, as part of our return to play program, there is a psychological readiness test we have athletes take before they return to sport.
Yeah, I think that's great because I think if you are worried about re-injury, you're going to hesitate your normal movement. That makes perfect sense.
That's a big thing too. If people will get heavy, and it's like, I had an athlete a while ago get upset with me because I wasn't giving him enough feedback of what he thought. I was like, you know what to do.
Yep.
You yourself are a coach, you're a strength coach. Like, you're doing it perfect at 70, 80, 85, 90. 93 plus starts to get a little bit hairy, and it's just like,
yeah, it's heavy.
You're scared, man. It's like, I can't, you gotta figure out a way to tell yourself you gotta attack this motherfucker, and just, you're gonna beat it. You're not gonna let it win.
That's right. And guess what? An ugly lift can still be a successful one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Let's take football. It's 4th and goal. There's 2 seconds on the clock. Last play of the game. You don't care if you throw it in, run it in, fumble it in, just get in, you know. You know, in Olympic lifting, you don't get judged or score extra points because whether it look pretty or not. It's lift it within the rules, you know, or not. But yeah, those are I think that's the mindsets that I look for in an athlete. And if they don't have it, I try to develop it. It's being courageous when it's time to be courageous. And also dealing with problems, you know, how can he deal with it? Coping.
So on the conflict resolution side, this is a big thing I've started to see a lot more with athletes too, is the ones that can take the cue. Like, Brooke is my perfect example because she's the best weightlifter I've ever coached so far.
Yep.
But and not just from a success side, but just from a coachability standpoint. I'm not afraid to say that, because the thing I've noticed with her is, and with my other successful athletes that continually make progress, is when I give them a cue, and it doesn't matter how positive you try to spin things. Like, I always try to coach with a positive approach. Like, hey, you did this really good. Now focus on this, right? That's kind of a positive thing. Instead of like, I'm not coming down and being like, you did this all wrong, this and that. But what I found is the people that are good with the conflict resolution, that are successful, are the ones that take that and just say, okay, I just need to make this tweak.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't seem to make as much success are the ones that are sitting there going, oh no, well, I did this all wrong. I'm not good. And or they're worried about making that. They're worried about making that same mistake again more than they are concerned with just making the correction that they know they can make.
And make it better. That's right. Yeah. If you're sitting and you're thinking in your mind, okay, I'm on stage. Don't miss. Please don't miss. Please don't miss. Please don't miss. What are you thinking about?
Yeah.
You know, missing. Yeah. That makes sense. I do it. So you're saying Brooke is a good example of someone who will take, I don't want to say the negative, but take the error of something and focus on how to apply better.
Yep. So
that's an athlete, man. That's an athlete.
She's missed some. And she usually lifts like 4 or 5 or 6 anyways in most competitions. But if she'll miss like a second attempt, I can go look at it. I can even, like, a lot of times I won't show people their lift because it just gets in their head.
Yeah.
I confidently can say, hey, look, you did this. All we need to do is this little thing. Okay. Goes up and nails it.
And nails it. Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And it seems like she's someone that doesn't think of anything she's doing as a problematic or wrong. She's like, okay, I just need to be better.
Yeah.
Instead of this negative side to things. So I think that is definitely a big thing for a lot of people that they need to realize is, in this sport, nothing's going to be perfect. Even the guys at the highest level are still working on improving.
Yeah.
It's a sport no one gets to where it's like, yeah, this total is enough. Maybe for some people it is, but
yeah.
It's like, I've been chasing this goal for 5 years. I hit it. I'm done. But for those that still want to compete, I think there's always that goal of putting up a bigger total. And so, yeah, with that being said, how much of this sport comes down to genetics, having an athletic cap or ceiling to your training and things like that. And because I've had some people that I've had to have conversations with where I was like, I think your goals are unrealistic, and they don't like to hear that.
No, they
They'll
don't.
come back maybe a year later and be like, you were right. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
but thoughts there.
Genetics plays an important part in all sports, right? It's not just weightlifting.
Nope.
To take a little bit of a deeper dive to that, genetics in the world of weightlifting doesn't just mean strong only, because Olympic lifting is a test of skill, not a test of strength exclusively. So it'd be nice to have someone come in and they're just naturally strong. Let's get them stronger, but can they move, control? So, genetics does play a important role, but it is not complete. It's definitely over half of the equation for sure. But I'm going to tell you, here's what's just equally as important: the mentality and the character we just described. Their discipline, their ability to, I don't want to say stay dedicated, because everyone is dedicated, especially when you're in love with it, but do the things that are important outside of the platform. I'm sure you get weightlifter, young, new beginners, and you can see some muscular imbalances. Are they doing the right remedial work after training, before training, to better their movements? Are they eating? Coach, I'm overtrained. Are you overtrained, or are you under-recovered? And so these things don't have anything to do with genetics. They have to do with your ability to supplement and live your life that will, outside of the platform, help the barbell. So genetics is great in every sport, man, but the difference, I think, between the top dogs and not is not just genetics. It's the lifestyle associated with success.
Absolutely. Yeah, you really have to have all those factors in one to be great.
Yep.
You can't just run with one of them.
That's right.
In the sport, for sure. And so that being said, too, I've seen a ton of people come into the sport that are super dedicated, super gung-ho, all about it for a couple of years, whatever, and then all of a sudden it's just like, in not just with my athletes, but you see it in powerlifting too, of like, these guys are the big shots, and all of a sudden, like, they're just done.
Disappear.
They fall off the face of the earth. It's like, what happened to that person? Yeah. So how do people get burnt out from the sport, and how do we prevent that?
Yeah. I think burning out is really easy to do in Olympic lifting. From a physical standpoint, let me just say this. I don't have the data, so what I'm about to say is not proven, survey, data-driven. It is observation for the years I've been in. So I don't have any hard, absolute numbers for anyone who prefers the science of what I'm about to say. But in my experience over the years as an athlete, now coaching, I'm entering my 25th year as a coach. The majority of injuries that happen in weightlifting are not from a collision, an accident, a bailout, a mistake, although it does happen. I mean, I have seen shoulder dislocates at the bottom of a snatch. I've seen quad roll-ups at the bottom of a heavy clean, but so rare compared to every other sport. The majority of injuries in weightlifting happen from overuse. So now you have overuse that's causing a lot of problems. That's your physical burnout. Well, that's going to affect your psyche, because now you're wondering why you don't feel good all the time. And even though there's value in learning how to train in a constant state of inflammation during phases, which leads into my next point here too, that messes with your mind. So now you're mentally burnt out, because now your thoughts are getting affected by the way you feel. And you're tired of constantly focusing so hard because you're doing it to yourself, and you are burning yourself out. But also, I think a good way to avoid all these things that I'm saying is make weightlifting seasonal. That doesn't mean the amount of time football takes an off season, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't think we should be doing snatches and clean and jerks all 12 months out of the year. So if you find somewhere throughout your year to either do something different, back off, there's no answer, right? This is so individualized. Find something else to get your mind off of it. And even when you don't really want to, it's just the same thing we say now in our society, life-work balance. I mean, you can avoid burnout by implementing these things that I'm saying. It sucks because you just want to go hard. You're afraid a day off, you're falling behind. When, by now we know rest is as important as work, and rest is where we gain. The emotional side of the sport will burn you out too. So pick the most important competitions and train for them. But if you're not actively training for those important competitions, find a break. Find something else to do that you enjoy. My last, and this is a little bit of cliche, is, but you gotta keep it fun. You gotta find something about it that makes you happy. You just asked me at the opening, as a coach and as an athlete so long in the sport, what keeps me enthusiastic? You can do that in an athletic career. And there's ways to do it. I will tell you what, beginners are having fun, intermediates are having fun, but the minute, and you're getting a taste of it with your coaching experience now at international stages and meeting more and more people that you are, the elites that we all admire online, making these senior world trips, they're trying to make the Olympic Games in Paris, their stipend, they're getting now paid, Brett, to be weightlifters. It's not fun. Right? Like none of them are telling you, I am having so much fun. Right?
No.
Because now there's so much on the line. Now it's not, I want to get better because I really love it and want to. Now I have to get better or else it'll cost me. That is a different mindset. And for everyone out there listening saying, man, I wish I could do weightlifting all day long. I could do it for a job. Or, I wish I would have started when I was younger. I feel it and I get it, but just remember, if you don't find a way to still have fun doing what you're doing, you're out. You will burn out. And like, what did you say in your example? 4 or 5 years, some of these quick rises or quick falls.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, people want to fight me on this one too, because like my adult athletes that are doing this, they want to do it year round. This is like their hobby and their lifestyle.
Yeah.
But some of them work through way too much, or want to work through way too much volume and intensity all the time. It's like, we need that GPP. Like maybe we're just going to snatch and clean and jerk once a week for a little bit.
Yeah.
And work on other things and just take you away from it. You'll come back better. And they don't want to believe you until they see it happen. And it's like, okay.
Let them die first.
Yeah.
Let them die first.
I'm gonna start telling people that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it's true. Listen, I have masters athletes who fell into the sport, air quotes, later in their lives. Mm-hmm. It's never too late, first of all, because that masters community is very competitive. Yeah. They're freaking strong at 35, 40, 45, 50, right? Mm-hmm. So you can still make the most out of it and enjoy it, right? But even with my adult weightlifters who want to go 12 months out of the year, I find ways to insert that fun that I'm trying to describe to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because for some of those older individuals, the Olympics is definitely not on their map or on their reality. But like why does it have to be to have fun? So actually they can last longer. You know what? I'll end there. I think the elites of the elites have the shorter shelf life. For the adults who got in, quote, late, I think it's a lifetime sport for you. So there is no end. So, I like the example you said. I got a couple young guys right now that I'm forcing to only snatch and clean and jerk once or twice per week to focus on basic squat, pull, press. I'll throw in some circuit training. I got to be careful not to call it cardio or CrossFit. Mm-hmm. Because my weightlifters will shit if you say cardio. But heck, even then, I think weightlifters need some aerobic base,
Yes, I agree. They hate when you give it to them, and then they start to realize like 2 months later, it's like, oh, like I don't have to rest in between as long. I'm just not as gassed. I'm not as beat down after training. It's like, yeah, man,
Hello.
mitochondria are important.
Yes. Yes.
And then we talked about too before. So this is the conversation we had in Ecuador about being a product of specialization versus being a proponent of it. So can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember shooting the breeze with you then. And
Yeah.
and I like to tell this story. I tell this story a lot. My athletes roll their eyes because they've heard it 1,000 times. You hadn't heard it 1,000 times, so I was proud to tell you, but here's why. It's a cautionary tale, right? I was a football player, basketball player, not great at that, baseball, soccer, gymnast, more of a tumbler, and I did like everything, man. I was a stereotypical child of the 80s and the 90s where I woke up every day and I ran outside. I spent all day outdoors. At the risk of injury, I was doing something physical. At the age of 12, almost 13, I got introduced to the barbell, and I was taught the snatch first. I'll never forget that. It's funny because I find myself as a coach teaching snatch now first to people, and the first day of learning what the heck, I didn't even know what it was. I had a real snappy turnover in the snatch. Like the first day, it was like, that one good snatch movement, is good.
It hit,
yes. And then you can't do it again. Like you do it like once, you feel it, you get lit up, but then you can't find it. You're like, damn it, I just did it. What happened?
It's like gambling.
Yes. It's like it's like hitting a moving target. But I remember that day, and this is where our conversation came into play, is I quit everything and dedicated what would end up being the rest of my life to the snatch and clean and jerk. I wouldn't play anything else. I had no interest. I found weightlifting and I quit all other sports the very day. And that's not being dramatic. I'm being accurate. It wasn't decisions that I was going back and forth on. I hung up every other sport. Well, that meant that to this story, I would snatch, clean and jerk, squat, press, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, press, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, press, on repeat 12 months out of the year for the next 9 years of my life. Now, I was specializing at a young age, and in the 90s, that was a really popular trend, right? I mean, get them young. Yeah, in order to be a champion, you have to start young, which we know now is not true, but that was the system that I was raised in. And here's the good thing. Super proud of my weightlifting career. I did a lot of good things with it. I did not make the Olympic team, but I did everything else. I did everything else underneath the Olympics, which gives me a sense of pride in something that I could brag about when I want to, right? But the flip side of that is I also retired, was burnt out, and hated it by the age of 21. So I retired from weightlifting biologically young, such that a lot of the people around me, the coaches around me, my friends at that time, my peers, Camargo, you can't quit now. You're only 21. But Brett, I felt like 51 at that moment. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And so I am a product or a victim, not a proponent of early specialization. And that's my choice. That's my choice. It's controversial, right? And I don't judge anyone for doing it. I just know that I lived it and I have that story to tell.
Yeah, I mean, we see this, and I did another podcast with Devin McConnell, he's been the high performance director for the New Jersey Devils, the Phoenix Coyotes, now the Utah Hockey Club, UMass Lowell Hockey. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this, and I had mentioned this to you, of these guys that come in that, are specializing before the age of 16 or so, and they're only doing one sport, especially hockey, that it's not a normal movement. And even I think we can start to argue that weightlifting is the same with all the repeated hip load and everything else, that you start doing all of that, you're going to start breaking your body down.
Yep.
And so what he was discussing is these kids that are 19 getting scouted by the NHL, but they got back injuries, knee injuries, this and that. They're worn down. They're skating like a 30-year-old. It's like, we know they don't have a shelf life. They're not going to get scouted. They're not actually going to, like, they're dropping points on their scouting report because of their chronological, like, hockey age.
Yeah.
And if they had just taken a few seasons off here and there to do different sports, do some extra training in the weight room, this and that, it would have been a whole different story.
Yep.
But people were so caught up in it.
Right.
And,
Right. I don't know a lot about hockey. I'm a sports fan, so I watch it. I know enough of the rules to get excited and know who to cheer for. I wouldn't know the first thing training it. I'm a Floridian, bro. I don't own skates.
The Panthers suck.
Yeah, like, depending on who you ask, not here in this state. But, I would assume that many team sports are similar in that you have a high school choice, then there's club, and then there's travel ball, right? Like, I don't know that you have to do all of them. You're right. I mean, it's hard to convince a player to take a season off, but I don't know that it'd be hard to convince them to just dedicate to either the high school season or a club, whatever the choice might be. But to do both, I mean, baseball players here locally, I trained some of them in some, general strength training stuff. And, they're playing for the high school, and then they're rushing to club, and they're playing summer ball, and 12 months out of the year, they're pitching and they're batting.
Yep. Not good.
So, I'm with you on that. I think we agree on that. Got to mix it up a little bit. Variety's important.
Yeah. And I know a lot of weightlifting coaches, too, kind of shit on CrossFit. And I think with CrossFit, it's changed a lot over the years. And it's still... There's different gyms, different levels of coaching, different methodologies that happen between one gym to the other. But for some of my athletes that do CrossFit supplementally, I love that. They're hitting different motor patterns. As long as they're not in one of those gyms where they're doing 30 snatches for time with a certain load just because the board says so, and they can kind of scale and things are done in some type of, scientific theoretical manner. I'm fine with it because, like, the ones that I have too, they've got better gas. I can depend on them to not get as tired in a competition. I know you don't have to sit for 7 minutes between clean and jerk because it's heavy and you're gassed and just full of adrenaline. So there's lots of benefits there to that. In some instances, it's just a matter of who's the coach, what gym you at, what's the programming look like type deal.
I agree 1,000% with you. I couldn't agree any more that there could be segments of the year or segments within a cycle of training where we can do, okay, it's going to sound crazy when I say this, but we could do CrossFit. The problem is that what CrossFit has become since I entered CrossFit in 2007 and I fell in love with it, it's changed a little bit. And you hear CrossFit, you automatically associate with puking or, just like excessive. No. When I say CrossFit in my gym, it's nothing more than GPP or circuit training. I modify the heck out of it to allow a weightlifter to still recover, because I would agree a weightlifter of mine who also does CrossFit in a manner which the world sees CrossFit, which is unfortunate, will break them down. I'm not trying to break them down. I'm trying to give them a little bit extra. We deal in just vertical movement. We have nothing lateral. We do nothing laterally.
Nothing rotational, nothing lateral.
Yeah. And we don't. And why? Because we're trying to specialize and be the best at weightlifting, but maybe the secret to the success is variety and mixing it up a little bit. What is wrong with any horizontal, movement other than the split jerk? But you know what I'm saying? I think we get better, well-rounded weightlifters if we consider sprinkling a little bit of CrossFit scaled for weightlifters. Yeah,
that's huge because, and that's my thing is, especially as a therapist, is even though these like snatch and cleans happen in one plane of motion, right? You start to build some asymmetries here and there. Maybe one hip's a little bit weaker. You're lacking a little bit of rotation. That stuff can all be okay. but are we trained and ready to handle that load
That's right.
when we go, 95 to 100% and it rotates a little bit further than it ever has? Have we built up other movements, maybe in the rotational type plane, that are covering those bases to prevent injury down the line from happening?
Right. Yeah.
I'm
with you on that.
Can I just rotate my body in a healthy manner versus walking like a 2x4?
Yeah.
So I think those are big.
Yeah, man.
And the other piece here too I wanted to talk to you about is, as we're kind of talking through all this, so the specialization in this, and the big thing now too is like everyone's so caught up on their camera, and
Oh my gosh.
and it's like coaches can be, athletes definitely are, and there's a lot of remote coaching stuff now, and that's really the way to do it in a sense. But powerlifting and weightlifting are the only sport where we see athletes mid workout, mid practice, whatever you want to call it, training session, sitting there watching videos of themselves do it and then trying to change it within a session.
Yes,
They're looking for their coach for that. Where like, if we look at football players, hockey players, like the coach isn't coming over to you in the middle of the game saying, "Hey, you moved that crossover you did on the ice there at the blue line. You need 2 degrees more of that."
Yeah. No, what they're telling you is just repeat and do it again.
Yeah, or it's the simple stuff. If it needs to be faster, or you were just in the wrong position, whatever it might be. We're not looking at breaking down those mechanics that in depth, where with weightlifting, for some reason, people seem to think they need to sit there and have all the angles, all this, all that. And again, it's the
Every rep, every set
perfectionist thing.
Yeah. Every rep,
So
every
what are
set.
your thoughts? What are your thoughts on using the video feedback as a lifter?
Yeah. Here's my view. Listen, you're outnumbered if you're going to say no more phones on the floor. 'Cause, like, you're not going to get that. Yeah. You're going to lose that battle.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish I could tell them get rid of it, because whatever happened to instinct? These athletes are judging their performances in training by what they see on a 2-dimensional image and video. But here's an example that frustrates me. Me, athlete, working together. Athlete makes a good lift, turns to me smiling, Brett, and says, "That one was a good one." And I go, "I agree. That looked great." High five. 5 minutes later, they're walking up to me with the video of the same lift and say, "Oh, coach, I just noticed on that last lift, I may have done ABC wrong." I will smack it right out of their hands. And I'm like, didn't we both just agree that it was a good one? "Yes, coach, we agree." I go, "So why are you?" Listen, in slow motion, we can always find something wrong. So that's frustrating. Okay, so my rule is it's a great tool. And the best thing to do is let's approach it from the standpoint of other sports. Let's watch tape. Let's watch videos between sessions, before a session, and then just go execute, not during the session. On a smaller scale, I have a philosophy that for athletes, and I try to teach them, when you're thinking about visualizing, using imagery, right? If that's what you're doing, let's do that. Okay, between sets, while you're sitting waiting, concentrate. When you're in competition, waiting for your name to be called, that is the time to rehearse. Okay, you stand up. The minute you touch that bar, you have to blank out. You cannot, the bar's moving too fast to think about it. You just got to execute. If you're thinking about the movement in the middle of the movement, you're slowing it down. That's almost anything we do. And so...
Can you say that again for everyone to hear?
Yeah. If you're thinking about the movement...
back?
Yeah. If you're thinking about the movement in the middle of the movement, you are actually slowing it down. Oh, here's another one. When it gets heavier, I really emphasize stop, think, and go. It's really easy to say it. I know executing's hard. Don't think about it, just go. Because we can all think about technique when it's 50%, 60%, 70% of 1 rep max. No problem. You can go ahead and think about it all you want, 80, 83. The minute you get to about 83, 85%, you are now at this threshold where you sometimes forget, I got to put the gas on. It's heavy. It will not move itself. And so we get so caught up on technique, we forgot what the hell's the effort. You forgot you actually have to push and pull and absorb, not just produce force, but absorb force. And that takes effort. Okay, so in the same way, I'm saying concentrate between efforts, then time for effort, blank out. I mean, Brad, have you ever done a snatch or a clean and jerk that was moderately heavy? You drop it, people around you clap, and you don't remember it, right? Like anyone who out there has done a big lift, drop it. People are looking at you. You knew it was successful, but you're like, whoa, I don't even remember it. It just happened. That's automation. That's a wonderful, it's a wonderful thing. And so the videos are the exact same thing I'm saying here. Let's look at video in between workouts. Let's do it overnight if you want to stay up and drive yourself crazy. Definitely look at video before your session begins. But then during the session, don't worry about it. Execute and use your field. Sense the right movement.
Yeah, the thing I see too is a lot of people, especially at the, let's say, intermediate level, can be doing a lot of things consistently well, but they might still have plenty of pieces to their lifting that might be a little bit inconsistent. Yeah. And then there's those pieces that they're consistently doing wrong, but they want to get caught up in the minutia of all the things.
At the same time.
And it's like, hey, you don't need any more video feedback from me. We know every time you lift, you do X. And it's like, once in a while, yeah, you do Y. You did Y there, but like, you do Y 1 out of every 20 reps. Like, you don't need me to tell you. And I had someone leave once because I wasn't giving him enough feedback. And I was like, dude, we've been talking about this all the time. And it's like, you repeatedly just do the same thing over and over. And I'm cueing you on it. I'm trying to get you to, and he did put like 50 kilos on his total in a year. And I was like, all right, we're still making progress here. Maybe it's not at the speed you want, and you're being a little bit of a perfectionist over it, but it's just a matter of like, I can't help you any more than what I already am. And it's like, you don't need any extra. It's actually hurting you.
Yeah.
And kind of like you said, like, let them die. Like I had some people, I was like, oh, I want more feedback. I was like, all right, we'll let you die. I'll give you the feedback. And then 3 weeks later, one of them comes in, he's having a horrible, like, heavy Saturday, and what's going on? I was like, I think I'm overthinking all that stuff you gave me. And I was like, I fucking know. I told you.
Thank you.
I was like, next month, let's leave you to your own devices.
Yep.
Like, you'll send me some videos. I'm going to give you minimal feedback on what looked good and what to improve upon, like, within a whole session, and that's it. And then his total went right back up.
See, listen, that's a great example of, there's a little tongue-in-cheek when I say let them die first, but honestly, in this case, you're trying to get them away from over-analyzing the famous paralysis by analysis. It's such cliche now, but it is true. It's a thing. And it's almost like if they don't take your advice on that, right? You can't force these athletes. It's their careers. They have to do what they feel is best under your recommendation. You can only do so much. That's a perfect example of their own frustrations will eventually catch up, and they just, I hate to say give up, but they let go. My kids in the gym that I train, all my athletes in my gym, they make fun of me because I'm getting older and older and older. We make fun of my age, whatever. And I don't care. I'm not really bothered by that. And I'm like, well, all these gray hairs I have, I'm like, that implies wisdom, little kids, I tell them. And I also say this, not to get too philosophical, but, as you get older, you don't get wiser, you don't get smarter. You just learn what not to care about. And so in the context of this conversation, I think that's true for athletes learning and trying to get better at weightlifting. The more reps and sets you perform, the more years that pass by, the more you learn what's not important to care about. And it's enlightening, right? It's almost like an epiphany for some of these lifters to go, wow, I used to get really stressed out about missing behind me.
Yeah.
Now I view missing behind me as getting closer to how to avoid doing it, and that takes time. Unfortunately, you got to let him die first.
Yeah, it's funny too in the evolution of my own coaching, because when I first started coaching, I wanted to give everyone as much feedback as I could and throw everything I knew at them that I could to help them get better. And then the more and more you do this, it's like it's the same consistent pattern of there's one or two things, maybe this and that. And now I'm at the point like people ask, in the gym and stuff, like, what's different about Brooke or whatever. I'm like, she gets, and this is like something I'm almost scared to go the other way now, of she gets the least amount of feedback of any of my lifters.
Yes.
And it's like she's a good athlete and she has good self-awareness, and we have a good trusting relationship with one another and everything too, I think. But I bite my tongue sometimes with her. Like, even like I have some people I have on an app and I give them like the feedback with Coach Now, and you can slow it down and do the flywheel and add the vectors and put your audio in it so they can understand it. And there was one thing about a month before Pan Am she was doing, I was like, I couldn't explain it in text, and she's like hybrid with me. She only comes in once a week. And I was like, I like thought about it for like 15 minutes before I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, but I don't want this to open a rabbit hole of like you going down the field. Cause like we haven't really done it before, and you've been doing great. Like you're number 3 in the Pan Americas right now. So why are we going to mess with that? Like, I don't want to get her in this realm of like, oh man, there's all these arrows and everything else, and stressing her out about it. Where like, she's been fine just like with these little tweaks here and there and keeping it simple. Yeah.
Less is more, the more experienced we all get. So hard to think of it that way. You know that I coach Meredith Allwine, one of our elites, the last 2 quads, and an Olympic hopeful. Actually, at the onset of this recording, I got the message that she did get the invite for this year's Senior World Championships in Bahrain.
Oh, congrats.
So yeah, man. So we're heading out. I will be in December, right after AO finals, or during AO finals. I don't know. Heading out and going to the World Championships, right? When she's been training in my gym, it takes people aback who are new to the gym and see that I don't see every single rep she does. I don't engage for every single set she does. It's almost like I check on her. I'm observing. I just may not have to say anything to her, especially as we get closer to competition. Because when you get close to competition, you just go with the tools you got. And you go. The competition is not the time to change something.
I have athletes I won't give, even if something's like massively wrong, I'm going to wait for them in warm-ups. I'm going to wait 3 to 4 times and then repeat it wrong to be like,
that's right.
All right, now I'm going to step in and say something, but you got to kind of force me to almost have to give you something that's not a regular cue or some correction that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, because if you see it one time, that's just a one-off. Let it go. They don't bring their attention to it. You keep going.
No. Yeah.
But I've had beginner after beginner say to me, "Wow, coach, it's not what I expected." And I would say, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, I joined your gym, and you giving me a lot of attention to some of the beginners, but I thought you only worked with Meredith Allwine or my elite people in my gym." And I'm like, I don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm there to support and facilitate with their careers, but there's not a whole lot of changing. I mean, we do sometimes, with advanced people. Sometimes, here's one for you I think you might appreciate. Sometimes advanced people will benefit by going back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not everything needs to be high level that they do. They sometimes need some reminders of early on in their development. But the beginners and the intermediates are the ones that I do have to engage every rep, because either they're going to hurt themselves or they're learning. Mm-hmm. But people who are advanced are very independent like that, and routine like that. So you sound like you really have a great relationship with Brooke, man. I mean, I got to see it firsthand. We were in the session together, and I was helping you strategize. Although I remember one moment we lost you, and that was kind of my fault. I realized what I had done later on is I read one thing on the board.
Oh, we're at the board, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said something, and then Sean said something else, and I was like, wait, we need to
Yes,
figure out
you're
who's
right.
on what page here because you guys are seeing different things, and I've been in the back with her the whole time.
You're right. I hated myself for that moment. Look, that goes to show you it doesn't matter. 20-something years, and I made a mistake. Now, it wasn't a costly mistake, and I wasn't making...
No, because I think that was a cool moment because you had said something to me.
Yeah.
Sean had made a different call.
Yep.
I was in the middle of it, and you guys hadn't communicated to each other yet. You're kind of standing on different sides of the boards. We're managing different athletes, whatever, but I think yours had finished for the day.
That's right.
And but it was something where I said, time out. You need to tell Sean, you need to talk to Danny about what the hell you're seeing, and Danny tell him what you're seeing.
Yeah,
you guys conversed about it. We came out, we made the right call, and we got a medal.
You got the right call.
That's teamwork right there. It was a constructive conversation, and everything played out well because of it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad. And for context for the listeners out there, basically, I was making not a prediction. I was kind of making an observation on a scoreboard with, I'll say it, limited information. The only information that was accessible to me. I didn't have the information you and Sean had about some other competitors, which factored into the judgment calls. You know what I mean? It's almost like, it's almost like watching a football game or just seeing the score at the end.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I think I did. But I'm really glad to hear, though, man, right now on recording, that you didn't see that as confusion or problematic. You actually saw that as a learnable moment. Because communication is everything, man. And super successful at the end of the story.
Yeah. That kid couldn't. I told her just to retire. I was like, you're not going to have a better meet than that. So
call it now, start coaching.
Yeah. We're going to start. She's going to start doing some programming for me soon, actually. She's going to become a little intern for me, I think.
Do it. But, good.
Yeah. She wants to coach, so
yeah,
we got to get her in there for that.
Yep.
I just saw your message, by the way. Are you good now? I saw
good.
You fixed it. Okay.
Yeah, for a little bit longer. I fixed it. Forgive me for shifting in the middle of this discussion.
Good.
I was hoping you didn't mistake my movement, but that's what I was worried about. But it's done. I'm rocking and rolling.
I forgot to remind you at the beginning, actually.
Yep.
So last thing I wanted to talk to you about here, because I get this a lot, and I had this conversation with somebody that wants to join the gym the other day. CrossFitters that want to supplement weightlifting to get better at CrossFit.
Ooh, say that again. Say that again. Ask that one more time.
What are your thoughts on CrossFitters supplementing weightlifting, programming, training, coaching, whatever you want to call it, to get better at CrossFit?
Oh, listen, that question's a little bit harder. Go ahead and let you finish.
I'll give you some background, right? So I've had multiple people that are doing CrossFit like full time. So this woman came in the other day, and I'm not going to say her name, but I'm going to text her after this and tell her I'm talking shit about her.
Do it. She's helping others. The story is helping others.
Yeah. She's 38 years old. She wants to go to the Masters games the teams games, I believe.
All right.
2 kids, full-time job, husband, married, whatever. She's currently training 6 days a week for at least 2 hours a day.
Oh my word.
And thank you.
Yeah.
My first question was, why are you training 6 days a week? And her answer was, well, the current coach I have that I'm leaving told me I should be training 6 days a week. And I said, what are your thoughts on going 5? She's like, I feel so much better doing 5. I was like, okay, thank you. I was like, at least you get some of it. But even at that point, even at 38, training 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, we're kind of fighting different ideologies of weightlifting as a sport of, it's neurologically demanding.
Yes,
I would say CrossFit's more physically demanding. Where weightlifting, like my thoughts on training, like maybe CrossFit and bodybuilding and things, like you're training to make yourself tired almost.
Yes.
Where weightlifting, you're going into training, like when I was competitively training for weightlifting, I didn't want to be sore for my next training session. I didn't want to be you want to train as almost little as possible to get an adaptation, to get stronger. without overdoing it so that you had a whole good week of training,
Yeah,
at
that's
least in
right.
my mind. And there were always planned workouts that were going to beat you up a little more than others, right? Like Monday was always a heavier, higher volume day, but that would kind of slowly taper down through the week.
Heavy
Where,
Fridays.
yeah,
Yeah.
heavy Friday, heavy Saturday, whatever it might be.
Doesn't have to be max out, people. Just heavier.
Heavy, yeah. So, but I'm like, okay, I sometimes question, is it worth putting the time and effort into trying to put more into weightlifting to get better at CrossFit? Because there's that whole, I want to be neurologically rested. Can I get better
Yep.
in this state when I'm just chronically fatigued from CrossFit? And then also, okay, if we're going to train you to be better at weightlifting, I'm not going to give you more than 4, maybe 5 reps of anything at a
I
time,
love it. Keep going.
right? When you're going into CrossFit, are we undoing that with these like 20 reps of power snatches or whatever?
You may not be ruining it, but go ahead and finish, because then I definitely have a thought on this.
Yeah, so it's like, do you think you can still get better at the technicalities of weightlifting when you're constantly already tired and beat down from training CrossFit?
Yeah, short answer. Yes, by resting. Finding rest in there. All right.
Okay.
Here's my longer answer. I have not been asked, Danny, is it possible to supplement a CrossFitter supplementing weightlifting to get better back at CrossFit? Normally what I do get is CrossFitters coming to me to get weightlifting to be better at weightlifting. Not for weightlifting to make them better CrossFitters. All right. But I'm going to answer your question the best I can. Here are some of my key points when I have a CrossFitter that wants to use weightlifting for their CrossFit. Number one, when they come into my gym, they are doing very low volume, singles, doubles at a time, tops. Probably will never write a triple in snatch or clean and jerk for a CrossFitter. I don't have to, Brett. They're doing all of that already in their Metcons.
Okay.
I don't even have to cycle them, believe it or not, the same way I would a specialized weightlifter, where we accumulate, and then I transmutate, or just a strength phase, and then we peak or realize, right? I don't have to go through all of those traditional mesocycles when I have a CrossFitter, because a CrossFitter is taking care of all of that in their Metcons.
Yep.
Right? So that means when they show up to my doorstep, it is just movement patterns, moderately heavy to heavy. Doesn't have to be max out, right? I agreed with your opening on this question, is weightlifting has the biggest effect on our CNS, right? So when I do get CrossFitters to come, I do tend to just say, hey, we're going to do singles and doubles, tops. And it's kind of heavy to heavy. And focus on the whole movement. I don't have to partition. I think it's wonderful to do variations and segmented lifts. But number one, I don't have that much time with a CrossFitter because everything they're doing the rest of the week. And two, I think that you can work on one aspect of your technique by doing the whole. So, if you want to get better at the snatch and clean and jerk, you have to snatch and clean and jerk. So I do think it's possible. But in your story with the young lady at 38 years old, I think 2 days of Oli is all she would need. And without knowing more about her, on paper, this conversation, 2 days of Olympic weightlifting per week only, and she's going to see a difference in her, CrossFit. Now, I'll end by saying, when I got into CrossFit, my aerobic capacity sucked because I was a specialized weightlifter. But once I got my conditioning up, I'm going to tell you, for my age, when I fell in love with it and found CrossFit, I wasn't a young teenager at the time, right? I was in my 30s. My ability to move a barbell, and at times of weightlifting volume, actually kept my muscular endurance up pretty well as a CrossFitter. So, in other words, some things we do in Olympic lifting, the time under tension, really helps you barbell cycle. Low volume, moderately heavy. I think you could do it without frying them because you control it by reps per set. And then if we go into the technique of it, that's a whole different aspect. But I do think there are 1 rep max snatch and clean and jerk form, and then there are 30 snatches for time form, and they're different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when you say moderately heavy, like what range are we talking?
All right, moderately heavy for
Percentage-wise.
me. Percentage-wise, 80 to 85% is moderate for me.
Okay.
In other words, CrossFitters will come to me and they do not do anything lighter than 80, 85%. I mean, they have to warm up, right?
Yep.
And the only reason I like to do that is because they're already getting a lot of positional stuff in their metabolic conditioning routines. Maybe I spend a little time at 50, 60%, but honestly, our top sets are about 85% almost every time they come in.
Okay. Yeah, interesting, because I'm thinking of it from a perspective of this person comes in, they have technical faults, like, they all want to slam their hips into the bar and stuff like that. So I've always I've almost gone like the Kyle Pierce method, like the LSUS method of let's do like 55 to 60% from the hip, from above knee, solidify those hang positions, solidify your start position, focus on that thing. Let's do the powers to just continually pull up on the bar versus trying to dive bomb under it too soon. But it's like we're taking different approaches here.
Yes, we are. Okay, good. This is great for everyone listening because, there's not a wrong or right. I don't believe in this conversation. There's 2 rights. Right?
And I'll what I will say is, like, I'm going to work them like above knee, below knee. Might do some hovers off the floor or floating, whatever you want to call it. And like, I'm going to work up to that 80, 85% for singles, doubles, whatever it may be. Probably even heavier that at some point down the line, maybe, I don't know, 6 months in or so, if they've started to solidify that. But yeah, and you're going at it from a different approach. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, this is why I like 80, 85% heavy. Doesn't be max out. There's nothing wrong with that approach. In fact, I love that approach, but I would use it for people who have the time to spend doing only 5 days per week, because you can partition it and you get them to feel the right movement. But here's the problem. Not a problem. Here's why I would not use that approach. My perspective is it's too light to do it right when it's heavy. So you kind of have to practice it when it's heavy. Sometimes there's no cues, there's no corrections. It's just practice. All right. So let's say I have a CrossFitter who humps the hell out of the bar and they will not use leg drive. Well, guess what? You go 50, 60%, you do powers, you're going to do that really well. And okay, now they go to a CrossFit competition, they're under duress, they're under stress, there's time on the clock, it gets heavy, they're going to cheat it. They're going to go back to humping it because they don't have enough exposure with heavy. Repeated. Right? And so I would like to get a CrossFitter. And this is beautiful conversation because now your listeners can make a choice. Which one do they want to try? Both are right?
Yeah.
I like to say, if I'm worried about frying a CrossFitter and burning out or fatiguing, okay, then let's create maximal effort without actually putting maximal effort on. So maybe I'll give them a dip snatch or dip clean to get triple extension, or my favorite, blocks from above the knee, because now you can do 60%, but damn it feels like it's 90% because it's coming from above the knees, and blocks, overhangs, for me, I think teaches the athlete the feeling better. There's something about using blocks where you have zero tension, you start from above the knees, errors are easily recognizable, and recognition is the first thing an athlete needs to fix errors. In other words, it makes them way more aware than if you did a hang, but both would work, right? Both are going to work. I just love blocks. So if I'm worried about frying someone, I'll say, let's go about 70%. Yes, but I want it from above the knees. you will force triple extension on them. So basically, I think my approach is just how to expose them to the heavy lifts, which is when they needed to do it right, is when it gets heavy.
Yeah. So this woman I'm thinking of in particular too, it's like she told me the other day she can push press nearly the same she can clean and jerk, and she's probably like a 64 kilo lifter, and she's push pressing like 85 kilos and clean and jerking 87, I think. So she's not that far off. So it's like she has strength.
Sure, that's not the problem.
And it's that technique side. So it's like, okay, how do I? And I think for me, I use a lot of the 55, 60, 65% in the beginning just to get them to feel.
Sure, you have
what's right, what's wrong, and point out like, hey, that was too far, bring it back, dial it in, too much, too little, whatever. Let's find the Goldilocks.
Yep.
And then get them solidified there, and then bring them up into those 80% ranges.
Yeah, so you're doing that, of course, right? Okay, of course you have to get them in the right position, and you have to go light to do that. I like tempo work for what you just said. The hardest thing about mastering Olympic lifting movements is what we do between the knees and the hips, right? Okay, but beyond that, so I think maybe we might be saying the same thing.
I think we are.
Yeah, I think we might be saying the same thing. As soon as they're showing me competency at 60%, you said, bro, I get out of that as soon as I can, because I don't need them to do it right with an empty stick. That's being dramatic. I need them to do it right when they are under duress, because it's god-awful heavy. Because we have all experienced heavy load challenges your discipline. Heavy load will make you doubt the speed at which you need to perform it. And so we cheat. We cut it. We bump it. We swing forward. We'll do everything possible in a heavy lift to feel fast. But it's heavy. It will never be fast. And if you can embrace that, then you won't panic when the bar gets heavy. You'll say to yourself, coach said it's supposed to feel this way. And be patient, which is the number one cue we all use. So I think your 38-year-old just needs more patience. But to do that, you just gotta go a little bit heavy.
Yeah, she's just getting started, so we'll see how. I'll report back to you with that one.
Yeah, follow up. I think that sounds like a fun project. This is why I love coaching, man. I love this job.
It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's about an hour and a half of stuff there.
That's it. Thank you.
Anything else you wanted to go over here?
No, nothing, man. We covered it all, and if I think of it, likely it would be later. So, thank you for the time. And if you feel that there's more, or maybe your audience does, let's do this again sometime.
Definitely would love to have you back sometime. I'm sure there's plenty more rabbit holes we can go down.
Absolutely. This is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, 100%. All right, man. Take care. I'll be down in Florida in a few months, too, so maybe I'll come visit you guys down there.
Come on. Drop in, man. Throw a barbell around, or just come see what we're doing, man. I don't charge for that. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Take it easy, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Oh, actually, where can people find you, Danny?
Oh, there we go. Great. Thank you for that. I don't know if that was in written form or reverbalize it. For easiest way to find me, start with my website. It's oliconcepts.com. That's it. From oliconcepts.com, you can find my contact information, or at least our Instagram. My personal Instagram is Camargo_Oli. And those two routes, you'll be able to find everything that I do. And if you're anyone out there in the Orlando area, come check us out. I'm not too far from Disney, but I'm not super close either.
That's probably for the best for you.
Yeah. I love the tourists, but I like the local stuff.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you again. And if you guys have questions for Danny, you can feel free to send them my way too at barbell.therapy on Instagram or barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thanks for listening.
84% of you that listen to this podcast frequently do not hit the follow button. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, could you do us a favor and hit the follow button, leave a rating, and maybe leave us a review? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. If you'd like to know more about training in person or online with Brett's gym, Architect Fitness, please follow us on social at ARKITECT Fitness on Instagram or visit ARKITECTFitness.com. Or if you want to rehab with barbell therapy online or in person, check out @barbell.therapy or visit barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen.